Hello and welcome here on the Token Venture Capital TV once again. My name is Xavier Borja, manager at Venture Capital TV. And like every session, we bring you innovation, technology, and fantastic solutions. Doing all our sessions, you get to hear it from the people working there, the decision makers about their project, and maybe even the upcoming projects they have. Today, I'm very glad to introduce the project Avalanche, represented by Jay Kurahashi. Welcome, Jay. How are you?
Thanks, Xavier. Happy to be here. Really excited to talk about all the things that we kind of planned backstage too.
Yeah, I know there are a lot of things. So I hope we have enough time for that. And but before we just move to the interview, as a reminder to our viewers, you can see our previous shows and content by visiting latoken.com/bctv/shows. You can also follow us on our socials like Facebook and Twitter. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you just hit the subscribe button so you're always informed of the great content and even giveaways. Just as a reminder to our viewers, anything mentioned here is not any type of financial advice. You have to do your research before making a decision. Please remember that the choices are yours alone. Now, let's start. Jay, once again, thank you for being here. We will have a round of questions ready for you, but just to get started, can you tell us where you're connecting from?
Yeah, I'm connected from New York. That's where I've been actually born and raised here, but it seems like there is a very big crypto contingency that has been growing here since, I want to even say like 2014, 2015. And now you really have, you kind of just, so I live in Williamsburg, you walk around town and there's so many crypto people. It's actually kind of absurd at this point.
I've seen that. I've seen this. Like it's like growing all over the place there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Masari mainnet, the event in Midtown happened 2 weeks ago, and it was like a lot of locals just kind of coming out of the woodwork, especially with COVID restrictions letting up. I think people are keen on being back in person.
Oh, okay, fantastic. I also missed that. I can't wait to go back to the
Yeah,
expo
me too.
and talk with the people face to face.
Exactly.
Jay, one question we have. We can always read it in the website that Avalanche is the fastest, smartest contract platform in the blockchain industry. But can you tell us at the very beginning, what problem did your team foresaw and motivated them to start with the Avalanche project?
Yeah. The main thing that we were seeing is that we all believe that smart contracts is one possible future of the blockchain space. I think there's also peer-to-peer payments. I think there are also maybe things that actually haven't even been invented or innovated yet and out in the world. So those are kind of the two leading sectors. And from the smart contract side and also the payment side, but especially is the smart contract side, we saw scalability issues. That was something that was starting to really become a problem, especially as we're still very early and when the networks get congested and you have high gas fees, really slow settlement times, and also just degraded performance holistically, it's not ready for mainstream use, right? Or at least the technology. And that's a huge problem, especially as we're trying to all collectively break through towards that mainstream path. And so Emin Günsir, he's the Avalab CEO. He's also the founder of Avalanche Consensus. That's something that he identified as someone who's been very, very deep in the kind of consensus rabbit hole for decades at this point, distributed systems, sorry. That's where he was trying to focus in on, okay, how can we make sure that we have a scalable system from the ground up? So if you focus on the consensus layer and optimize that, then you no longer have to solve for the problem after the fact with, let's say, like high performance hardware or other mechanisms that kind of alleviate it but not necessarily solve the issue. So on the consensus layer, you have Avalanche Consensus, like I said before. And Avalanche Consensus, the kind of long and the short of it is it uses probabilistic consensus over deterministic consensus compared to other consensus protocols like Nakamoto and other ones that kind of are persist in the industry as kind of commonplace, honestly. And the main thing that I usually recommend at this point on these types of interviews is go to the Avalanche YouTube page. There's a 3-minute video with Goon talking about how Avalanche Consensus works. He does an incredible job explaining it. It really does kind of walk you through step by step I don't have a technical background, so if you also don't, you have no issues. You might have to watch it a few times for what it's worth, but I think it definitely is
That'll be
helpful
me.
there. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. Great. Maybe later on then we can get hold of that YouTube video and we can post the link. Jay, one question, another question that popped out. For how long have you guys been working on this project, or when did you start it?
Yeah, Avalanche Consensus was in stealth for some time, probably a year, a few years max, but like a year or so prior to Ava Labs being pushed into the forefront of the ecosystem. Ava Labs is a technology company that's building many different things involving blockchain, with the primary focus today being Avalanche, the Avalanche smart contract platform. That's where the team really has only been existing for, I would say, a year and a half, probably like last year, early 2020. And so
Okay.
I joined as like the 20th hire. So just to put that into context, May 2020. We're roughly around 70 full-time employees, with total headcount being around 110, 120.
Okay. Are they located internationally, or just more located in New York?
We have this office space that's actually in Williamsburg. It's technically our headquarters, but of course, with any distributed organization, you have this remote friendly approach. So we have employees and colleagues all across the globe, especially on the community front. The marketing and community function, which is the team that I belong in, that's where we have community managers in Russia, Turkey, all the big crypto countries. And then, of course, they also have BD counterparts too. So that's where you have this very remote first culture, which I think is commonplace in crypto, more commonplace because of the pandemic and the last few years. And now that we're going back, it's like crypto people are kind of looking left and right saying, well, we've been doing this the entire time. So it's not really that hard to adapt to.
Nothing new there, right?
Yeah, right. Like doing this, I don't really find to be that weird, to be honest.
No, no, and I find it much more productive,
Me
actually.
too. Me too.
And all the time you have the new tools coming out that help all the team get together somehow, share information. I think it's a fantastic idea. And Jay, one question. Okay, we went a little bit through what problems you foresaw, what was the vision, but can you tell us a little bit about the business model?
Yes. Avalanche. Avalanche is a platform that focuses first and foremost on smart contract deployments. That's the main area that we've been trying to grow out, especially on the ecosystem side, but also on the platform level. When you're building an L1 and deploying it into the world, you have all these different signals coming. It's also a very complex thing to deploy an layer one and ensure that it's decentralized and ensure that it's running and ensure that consensus is actually properly working. So for example, we have 1,000 validators that are running the Avalanche blockchain, or roughly 1,000 that are running the Avalanche blockchain right now. How do we bootstrap that validator count on mainnet launch and make sure that we mitigate the kind of central points of failure with the validators? Well, we can have incentive programs. We can make sure that we build the community prior to launch. We could also work with other staking as a service providers, node operators, all these different professional services prior to launch. And that's really what we were focused on the back end. On the front end, then it was, all right, well, how do we effectively create this party, if you will, that entices people to want to try? Because the barrier of entry in crypto is really high to begin with. And the barrier of entry to go across blockchains is also pretty high once you cross that threshold of being crypto initiated, if you will. And so we had to focus on the smart contract primitives, or the DeFi primitives specifically, stable coins, basic AMMs, decentralized exchanges, all these services that provide price discovery and just liquidity on the platform. Once we did that from about September 2020 to January 2021, or probably Q1 2021 is probably a better way to phrase it, then we focused in on, okay, are there projects on other chains that are having issues with performance? Maybe we can figure out on a B2B side if we can say, hey, why don't you just hedge from the current chain that you're on with Avalanche? Or maybe if you just want to leave the chain completely that they're deployed on, then they could just deploy completely on Avalanche, and we could also figure out a way to migrate any assets if they have that. And then I think the last component is really to grow out the native application ecosystem. There are so many projects that are coming out from the woodworks of kind of the stealth mode and really saying, well, we actually want to make a bet on something like Avalanche because we truly believe in its strategic goals of what we outlined earlier with kind of the bottoms up approach with consensus all the way up to the application layer. And so you have this very robust ecosystem of just Avalanche native projects that also want to push the boundaries of how far this ecosystem goes. And so pretty much the last year has been focused on just getting the groundwork ready to prepare for something like what we're doing exactly now, actually, the last month or so, with this program called Avalanche Rush. And Avalanche Rush is this incentive program which focuses on DeFi applications. We have major applications from the Ethereum landscape like SushiSwap, Aave, Curve, Paraswap, and a few others that I may be leaving out. And there's also some that haven't been announced yet. There's also then the native projects like Trader Joe, Pangolin, and Avalanche, and a few others that I also am leaving out. But you have this very robust campaign, if you will, of applications that are willing to really work in concert to attract users to come and at least try Avalanche. And the incentive program, when it was announced, was approximately valued at 180 million US. Now, because of the appreciation of the Avalanche token and because the incentives are mostly denominated in Avalanche token, the incentive program is now approximately valued at around 700 million. So you can see how a lot of this is just kind of preparation for this exact moment. The incentives haven't deployed yet too. So the last thing I'll say about Rush in terms of what we've been seeing in the last 2 months is Rush was announced end of August. End of August, Avalanche's DeFi total value locked was approximately a tenth of what it is today. And immediately once the announcement came out, without any deployments, the TVL of Avalanche DeFi grew to about 2 to 3 billion. And now we're at about 5 billion. We're kind of floating in and out of 5 billion. And this is, again, all without some of these major players coming in. So the thing that I noticed at Masari is looking around the conference floor, you kind of hear people being like, oh, well, Avalanche Rush, it's still coming. And that was like a little bit of a surreal moment, especially as I've been pretty much holed in this room that you're seeing now and just staring at the screen all day, every day. I almost forgot what it was like to hear kind of like the murmurs of real conferences. And that's where I'm very, very excited about what that has to offer for the users at the end of the day.
And this Avalanche Rush that you're talking about right now, is that like do you have more information? Is like something public, or is it yet to come?
So it is public in that the campaign is public. The thing that is a little bit push and pull is there are some applications that have applied after we announced, and so we want to include them in the program. So what we'll likely do over the course of the program is we're going to add more and more people to it and projects to it, rather, to kind of provide that stronger value proposition for the user to want to come and try Avalanche. And the thing that I think is key to this moment that couldn't have existed prior is the Avalanche bridge, the interoperability bridge tying the Ethereum blockchain to Avalanche. And I use this bridge all the time. I know there's also a meme on Twitter. People say GB, which means like good bridging instead of good morning, like the GM meme. And it's really taken hold of the community. And I think the reason why is because it's just a delightful experience, at least in the crypto context. You use your MetaMask, plug it in, and you just send assets, and you see on your front end how long it's taking to have assets transfer from Ethereum and how long it's taking to transfer it to Avalanche. And that kind of like waiting process, what we've heard from users, it's actually nice to finally see what's happening, maybe not fully under the hood, but at least conceptually what's happening with the tokens. So then you don't feel like you're sending a large balance and you're just holding your breath to hope that it crosses and traverses. It's kind of like sending a wire payment. It's a little bit nerve-wracking.
Yeah. Okay, so then basically they can visually see it.
Yes.
The transfer. Okay.
Visuals see it, and I think the other thing that is strong about the bridge is just the experience. Like crypto, you have to pull 100 levers before you get to the actual swap, or you get to
Yeah.
the actual action. This is truly like, I think it's like 2 or 3 clicks, and it transfers from your MetaMask connected to your Ethereum wallet, and then transfers to the same wallet address on the Avalanche side. So all you would have to do is flip the network, and your balance is there.
Okay. Is this still just like released only for a few people, or anybody could start using it right now?
Anyone can use it. All you need is either a MetaMask wallet or a Coinbase wallet.
Fantastic, fantastic. Then to our viewers out there, strongly recommend it. Give it a try. Eh, please do go to the website to review more information, learn the stories. Go to avax.network to obtain more information on this great project. Act right now. And then when you were talking, Jay, about all the projects that happening right now, does that have to do with the main words that you have on the website? Digitize all the world's assets.
Yes. So that's more of the focus of the Avalabs team. So the Avalabs team, that's what we want to make sure happens in this future of Web3. That's kind of our hope. And so Avalanche is one component of that. Avalanche, of course, is the settlement layer that will enable the digitization of all these assets. So hopefully in this, I don't know, I don't want to name specific years, I guess, but like 3 to 5 year time horizon, or maybe even farther, you're going to have this robust ecosystem of all these different type of assets. Maybe securities could be in it as well, and they could all benefit from economies of scale and just being part of this global network.
Okay, okay, okay. I got it. Fantastic. Uh, Now let's jump a little bit on the token, on the AVAX native token. How does that get involved in the whole project and the ecosystem?
Yeah. So there are a few things that I think is worth highlighting with the AVAX token or the native token. The first thing that it does is kind of what most of the L1 tokens do. They're a native currency of account for that platform. So you basically transact with AVAX for fees, transaction fees, and gas fees on the contract side. Then the next step is really on the staking side. So the validators that are securing Avalanche, the 1,000 validators that I mentioned before, you
Mhm.
have to stake Avalanche tokens and lock them up for, I think, minimally 2 weeks, if I recall correctly, and you can stake it for much longer. And that's basically how we're securing the platform. And you can earn roughly 10% APR on the staked fees, and that's, I think, the two prominent ways that can be that AVAX can be used today. In the future, there's going to be a governance component to Avalanche, and so that's where we're going to migrate towards a much more decentralized structure. Right now, Avalabs is one of the teams that's building Avalanche. There's also other contributors here and there, but hopefully with the token actually functional as a governance token, and then you're going to be able to really see some of the kind of, I guess, like governance structures that exist in crypto. Like I know MakerDAO has been doing this for some time. Shapeshift, I know, has completely transitioned to being a DAO, or is currently transitioning to being a DAO. Same thing with Aave. And so I think that's this new paradigm that has never really existed in prior industries, especially in the traditional ones. I think the closest analog or comparison that I like to draw is, it kind of reminds me of shareholder votes in equities.
Yeah.
But I think the equities are still a little bit prohibitive to get to. Maybe not so much now these days with Robinhood and such, but 10 years ago, you had to have a minimum balance. You had to do a bunch of, you had to be a qualified investor, more or less. And so I think this new paradigm of decentralized governance can really enable much more involvement, hopefully.
Okay, I got it. Thank you. Is there? We already spoke about this a little bit about the benefits for investors. Then my next question would have been like, what can investors expect when investing in AVAX token? But I guess you already replied part of that. Is there something more to add to it?
I don't think so. I mean, what maybe I could kind of reply with is more of just like where we're going, and that kind of helps clarify the roadmap a little bit.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because actually, my next question was going to be, where do you see the Avalanche project in 3 years from now?
Okay, so let me get like the first short term, and then I'll address the 3 year
Okay.
question as well. So the short term, it's all about UX optimizations end to end on the protocol level, making sure that people don't need to really think about what protocol they're using. Avalanche has two different blockchains basically underneath the hood. It's three technically, and I'll kind of overview it for the conversation. But you have the platform chain, the contract chain, and exchange chain. The platform chain enables the governance layer and also just the staking. So it's just more for the chain to operate, basically the metadata layer. And then the other two, one is used for fast transfers. It is a directed acyclic graph. Always have a tough time saying that. It's a DAG. So it can scale to pretty insane speeds. And if you want to just do payments that don't need to be ordered like contracts do, then you could use the X chain or the exchange chain. On the contract chain, that's where the Ethereum virtual machine lives. What that means is you have an instance of Ethereum running on Avalanche. So it's basically Ethereum run by Avalanche consensus. And that's why you're able to connect something like a MetaMask. You're able to use all these Ethereum tools out of the box. That's a key component to the strategy, because you now no longer require users to try a different application or download a new application or even convert those assets to make sure that or kind of jump through centralized exchanges rather to convert to get to that wallet, for example. So people can just kind of flip the switch because of the bridge, which is at bridge.avx.network. You can then port it over quickly. So the first component, just to reiterate, is platform improvements. The second one is infrastructure improvements. What I mean by that is the stuff that users use on a day-to-day basis. The Explorer, wallet. Wallet can take many different shapes and sizes. A desktop wallet, a web wallet, and a browser extension wallet. All of these things need to be absolutely seamless. Otherwise, if there's points of friction, again, on the protocol level or the infrastructure level, how are we to expect any users to pass beyond that and go into what we're trying to build up to be like this DeFi ecosystem or this NFT ecosystem or whatever you want to call it in between? How are you to expect that? You really can't expect that. And then I think the last piece is really ongoing improvements on the application layer, which is kind of where all of it sits on the end with all of these two components. So what is interesting to note is we really want to make it where someone comes into Avalanche and they have a wallet, let's say. And when they have the wallet, they don't have to think about what should I Google to figure out what I could be using. Like, let's say I want to use a decentralized exchange. Well, you're going to have to say like decentralized exchange on Avalanche and you can go there. That's, again, too much effort for people to want to go through, at least like non-crypto people. I know crypto people have a pretty high tolerance to push through a lot of different documentation and go down the rabbit hole, if you will. But for most people, they don't have that time. So if we want to aspire to be a mainstream ready product or a mainstream ready industry, we have to get all of our components at the early stages done first before we want to think about how do we get like our grandparents or our parents on this technology, right? And so with the application layer, I think there's three different focus areas. There's enterprises and institutions, decentralized finance, and NFTs and social tokens kind of bucketed into the cultural element. So that's kind of the focus areas that we're pushing.
Okay, great, fantastic. Thank you for that explanation. And while checking your website, I noticed that you have Avalanche, and then you have Rival, which is stock market of litigation financing. Is that like a completely separate project?
Yeah, so that's actually for me something that we've been working on for almost a year now. And high level, what I would like to describe this as is it's basically tokenizing the litigation fundraising ecosystem and making it tradable like equities are on a stock market. And so and what I mean by that is you have litigations that exist. Some of these litigations, in order to have proper funding and proper resources, can't just pay out of pocket. It's unrealistic for them. So they need to fundraise with institutions, high net worth individuals, to really get that capital so they could properly fight that litigation effectively, or whichever side they're on. And what we're now doing in collaboration with Republic and Roche Friedman, which is LLP, we're trying to create this product that exists on top of Avalanche, where you basically, you, me, any retail investor can buy into the potential upside of a litigation. So the first litigation that we're focusing on is a case called Apotheo. And it's this hemp farm that exists in California where they had billions of dollars of their crops burned by state officials. And so they're trying to fight that case by saying, hey, we legally were operating because we were just hemp products. We weren't marijuana products. And so this was an unlawful burning. And that's kind of the general case. And so that's where users can say, hey, maybe I do believe in Apotheo's long-term vision of actually winning this case. And that's where you would participate there. So
is it correct to say that they would be investing in the best case scenario, in which Apathio, for example, would win the litigation? So it's basically, betting. I wouldn't say betting, but yeah, putting their funds, investing it in which they believe would be the positive outcome.
Yeah, that's generally it. And what I like to say with this project is it's clearly a complex concept. It's clearly also one that has never been done before. So we're really pushing through slowly and carefully, making sure that everything is in the right order, all the paperwork is properly addressed, anything that could be considered as legal risk is addressed. I'm not a lawyer myself, so all these things are more conceptual comparisons, but we're hoping to have this out sometime shortly, at least as a proof of concept. But if anyone's tuning in really wanted to understand where this is going, I think the base level area you could be following is the Twitter account, Avalanche AVAX on Twitter, and that's where all those updates will be featured.
And do you think this will be like a niche market, or will actually be something mainstream?
Well, I think let's see, if I don't want to misquote this, but can't remember if it was, in any case, the market is pretty large in size for litigation fundraising. The problem is it's not accessible for any of the individuals or retail investors because it's basically a game for high net worth and institutions. So one possible thesis is it does help democratize and broaden access to this asset class. And so that's kind of broadly what we're thinking it could lead to. Hopefully it will be greater than the niche, but you never know with these things. It could be overly complex where it might be hard for real kind of new retail investors to really understand. It might become this product that only is used by more advanced and skilled and pro traders or pro investors. It's not really clear yet, but we're hoping that it's something that everyone could use.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's a completely new project, a new concept. I haven't heard or seen anything like that. So no, it'll be fantastic once it's up and running. We would love to hear more from it. It would be great to have you in and introduce it. And to our viewers, as you can see, there's a lot of potential with Avalanche, a lot of things happening. It's a great project that they're thinking about the long term. So if you do want to learn more, please go to avax.network. A lot of information there. Go share information also with the communities. And of course, for more information, please go to latoken.com /VCTV/shows if you want to receive this show again. Jay, great. That's really exciting. It's really ambitious projects you have going on. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to be taking action right now. They're going to review your page. They might have a lot of questions. But one crucial aspect for investors is the project's differentiation. I mean, there are various projects around the globe. What would make your project, Avalanche, different so that investors can move forward and invest with Avalanche?
Yeah, I think the differentiation is compare it against smart contract platforms. Focus in on something. This is where it helps, I think, generally speaking, in crypto to focus, because there's so many different signals, there's so many different verticals, and it's a little bit unreasonable to, let's say, like compare a metaverse protocol that's an application to something like a layer one. They're just two different things. It's kind of like comparing the internet to I don't know, to like your Amazon app. Two very different functions. And it's not saying one is more valuable than the other or one's better than the other. It's just two different systems, right? So with layer ones, especially with smart contracts, but also with peer-to-peer payments, you have the scalability issue. There are a lot of projects that have stepped forth and said, we could be the one that solves this. So figure out what you think are the leading horses in that race, and then start comparing what are the technical comparisons first and foremost. So with Avalanche, the differentiator is Avalanche is the fastest smart contract platform as it relates to time to finality. Why is that? It's because of the consensus algorithm that I mentioned earlier that really enables it. And you could do that, or the validators can reach consensus with very, very reasonable hardware requirements. You don't need a supercomputer, which is also prohibitive because you then, I guess, like, you then don't have the proper incentives for people to really participate as validators. You only allow for the wealthy and people that can purchase these large computers to participate as validators. So time to finality and decentralization or security is kind of another way I put it for those that kind of are like, hey, what does actually decentralization actually mean to someone? And then the last thing is low transaction fees. So when you transact on Avalanche, if it's a payments transfer, it could be fraction of a cent in US dollars. So negligible amounts. If you're talking about smart contract calls, it could be a few dollars. And it really can scale with the demand. And that's where we're seeing that as activity is picking up. And so I think if you compare it to, let's say, like Ethereum, where you have gas fees that are super congested, and you have other chains that are trying to kind of compete at this effort as well, just always look at those technical components and see if it's actually real or not. That's why I always say, like, I don't need to be doing too much marketing and too much of this kind of like smoke and mirrors, and I'm not trying to do that by any means, but no need for this marketing smoke and mirrors. Just really try the platform and see how you feel about it. I think the other components worth considering, of course, team, community, also like how the brand is perceived in the world. And so just really understand, like, how do people feel about it? What does it emotionally make them feel when they're using Avalanche? A good comparison, or a good example, sorry, that I bring to the emotional side is the bridge example. That good bridging meme, it took off on crypto Twitter, and it pretty much spammed everyone's feeds for weeks on end. And to me, when I look at that, I'm like, well, that's clearly excitement around it. And there's also emotional attachment to it, where someone is willing to take the time of their day to evangelize something that exists on the Avalanche ecosystem. And so those are also early indicators, I would say, of a lot of excitement. And then, of course, lastly are the metrics on chain. Total value locked, active amount of wallets, a number of transactions, and how much these have grown week over week, month over month. All these metrics shouldn't be, or each metric shouldn't be taken face value on its own. I think my personal recommendation is always look at everything, because it's not really clear what metric makes most sense yet in this Web3 world. And so might as well just spread your understanding across, maybe 2 or 3 metrics, and that way you can build confidence on an ecosystem, whether to build on it or actually just participate as a user.
Okay, got it. I got it. Well, quite a few differentiators. I think you have a big advantage there. Not only for the fees, but all the other thing that surrounds the project. And for the looks of it, you're already building your brand believers. If they're already going on with the memes and evangelizing it, so that's a great way to move forward. Finally, Jay, what would be your recommendation to our viewers today?
What would you say? I guess what's the angle, if there is one, or just broadly?
Broadly, if you can give any recommendation to our viewers today.
I think the number one recommendation is, if you're interested in smart contract enabled applications or decentralized applications, don't just read about them, use them. And you don't actually have to put that much capital into the applications to use them, especially on Avalanche. Since transaction fees are low, you're not going to have your principal get eaten up by gas fees. So put like $5, $10 on chain and start using these apps and seeing, like, really understand how they work. And I've been in crypto since 2011 as a Bitcoiner, And then once Ethereum came out was really when I started to take things seriously on a professional level. And I remember the things that helped me accelerate my understanding about this product, as someone who doesn't have a traditional finance background, as someone who's not a developer, or really that technical for what it's worth. What really helped me, all things considered, was just using the products and making some mistakes and making some right choices and everything in between. The mistakes, if you do have some funds that are non-negligible at stake, the kind of silver lining there is it's just part of the tuition that we call crypto tuition, and that's kind of how I would chalk it up, and just keep figuring out how best to not make those same mistakes again. And it's you're kind of in this we're all in this life of learning, and so if you kind of treat crypto as that, and I think people can be fairly successful in it.
That's a really great advice, because I think a lot of people always afraid, like, oh, what happens if I do mistake? Oh, I
Yeah.
don't know. I made mistakes when first time I bought a cold wallet. I think I lost I forgot the password or something.
Yeah.
Like this kind of small things. But as you said, next time I bought it, I was like,
You're gonna write it down.
really taking care of. But I mean, yeah, that's a little bit how it goes, especially with these, with the blockchain part that has new technology every day, new terms. People might get even a little bit like afraid, or might be getting too complicated for them. But as you said, I think they really have to try it, go through the experience, and they'll see it's not impossible. You do have to be open for new experiences, open for learning. But once you get that, then you get rolling, and then you're going to become more and more advanced and trying to find other solutions that are there, and then you can compare them, as you said before. So I think, yeah, that is a great advice for our viewers. And Jay, we came to the end of this session. Thank you very much to our viewers out there. I was talking with Jay a little bit before. We might be able to bring them back to the show with different topics, hopefully next week. So keep your fingers crossed. We're going to let you know. Jay, thank you very much for sharing all those really valuable insights with us. And to our viewers, thank you very much for joining us in VCTV here. It's a great way to start the week, and see you next time. Jay, once again, thank you very much for being here.
Appreciate the time. This is great. Thank you.
Bye.